as much as I would love to see a Boston WNBA team at the Garden, they already have the Bruins and the Celtics there. They don't have space to fit in another professional athletic schedule. Like, it's not going to work, especially given the fact that the Garden also hosts like concerts and shit like that. Like, it just won't work. Happy Friday and welcome back to Sarah Says So, your go-to show for women's sports news. We have a ton of stuff to get discussing this week, specifically about the WNBA. But of course, before we get started, make sure you're following the show at Sarah Says So ETB on all socials, so Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, plus anywhere you get your podcasts. So to start off our lovely episode 8, we are going to go over today's lineup. So like I said, pretty WNBA heavy episode. We're going to be talking about the Portland Fire franchise announcement, some all-star news ahead of that game Saturday, Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark injury updates, and some player rankings as well. And then we'll check in on some PWHL off-season moves and some updates from the Athletes Unlimited Softball League as well. So without further ado, we will get started talking about the Portland Fire. So we've kind of known that Portland was waiting for their WNBA team for a while now. They just like truly have a name. So not necessarily news of a new franchise or anything like that, but they have officially announced that the team will play under the original name, the Portland Fire, which was the name of the team when they played in the W from 2000 to 2002. So that's pretty exciting. I really like the logo that they went with. It's kind of like a cross between like a rose and a fire, like and a flame situation. I don't really know how to describe it. But it's like purple and red, and it has obviously like the fire element for the Portland Fire, but then the rose is like the flower of Portland and stuff like that. So I actually like am pretty happy with like the way that they did the rollout of that specifically. But they will start playing next season in 2026. Same with the Toronto Tempo, which is going to be the first Canadian W team. But yeah, this is just kind of like the latest update for all of the WNBA expansion overall. I know 2 weeks ago we talked about the 3 new franchises, Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia, which will join the league in 2028, 29, and 30 respectively. But this is really exciting because we've kind of just been like waiting around for this for a while, and so I know like Portland fans are really thrilled to kind of have like more tangible developments in this whole kind of process. So this just like was definitely something that fans have been waiting for, but also just in general, like I wasn't expecting them to do this and do this poorly, but they definitely did it well, which I'm glad about. I like had questions in general just about how they were going to continue to like roll things out since like there hadn't been too many updates about Portland recently. But yeah, I think this is obviously super exciting. It'll be interesting to see them add 2 teams at once. Obviously this year like Golden State was added, but that's just one team. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how the league handles adding 2 franchises at once next season, especially given the fact that those 3 new teams are all slated to enter in individual years in the next like 4 seasons or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of the Portland Fire update. Next, we're going to look ahead at the WNBA All-Star Weekend. So biggest kind of news with this is that Caitlin Clark is questionable in terms of injury for this, which I'm going to talk about a little later, but basically she is out for Wednesday's game that the Fever has because she re-injured the groin injury she was out for a few games with a few weeks ago. But I'll go into that in more detail a little bit later in the episode. In terms of All-Star Weekend overall, obviously they have, in addition to the game, the 3-point shooting contest and the skills challenge as well. Caitlin is supposed to play in the 3-point challenge for the first time. She didn't play in it last year, which was obviously her first year in the league. But depending on like her injury status and stuff, obviously like she wouldn't play in that. But overall, it would create a bigger issue if she's out because she is team captain of one of the teams. And so her questionable status is like a bit probably like if you're going to have anyone on the all-star lists like be injured, the last two people you would want are your two captains, especially when one of your captains is Caitlin Clark. But as of now, the other players slated to compete in that 3-point contest with Caitlin, if she's healthy, are Sonia Citron from the Mystics, Alicia Gray from the Dream, Sabrina Ionescu from the Liberty, and Kelsey Plum from the Sparks. So very much a star-studded contest. It'll be really competitive with all of those very talented shooters. And then the Kia Skills Challenge, Alicia Gray will play in that as well, and she will compete against New York's Natasha Cloud, Skylar Diggins, and Erica Wheeler, both from the Storm, and then Minnesota's Courtney Williams. So they do have like a good amount of players like getting in the mix, so to speak. In terms of like the teams themselves, it's obviously, like I said, Caitlin is one captain, and then Minnesota's Nafisa Collier is the other captain. So they did like a draft between the two of them. And in terms of starters on Team Clark, you have, in addition to Caitlin, Aaliyah Boston, Sabrina Ionescu, Asia Wilson, and Satu Sabali. So those are Caitlin's 5 starters. Obviously, like question mark for her still. But then on Nafisa's side, she has herself, Brianna Stewart, Alicia Gray, Neka Agumeke, I can never say her name, sorry, Queen, and Paige Beckers. Paige, I also did think was interesting. Obviously, she is a rookie all-star selection. She was taken with pick 8. She was Nafisa's last starter selection, and the last starter selection overall. I think people would probably expect her to go a little bit earlier than that in general, but I honestly based on the season that she's been having, obviously the Wings have been struggling a little bit. She's still doing really, really well. I'm not super surprised that she was picked that late, but I do think that's something that fans initially probably were like, what? That's weird. And then in terms of reserve selections, each team has 6. So that means obviously each of them have a total roster of 11. On Caitlin's side, in addition to her starting 5, she has also drafted Kelsey Mitchell, Gabby Williams, Sonia Citron, Kiki Iriafen, Jackie Young, and Kayla Thornton. While on Nafisa's side, she's also drafted reserves Courtney Williams, Skylar Diggins, Angel Reese, Alyssa Thomas, Kelsey Plum, and Ryan Howard. So definitely 2 very, very, very strong rosters all the way down to your the last reserve. And obviously, given that Caitlin is questionable, any of those reserves would be an excellent selection to step in for her. I think in terms of looking at captaincy, I could see them maybe pivoting to Aaliyah Boston or Asia Wilson. I mean, obviously Sabrina too, but just in terms of the starters that she's selected, honestly, all 3 of them, I could see any of them kind of stepping up and filling that role. But it will kind of be interesting to see how all of that plays out, just given the fact that, we don't know what will happen. Obviously, I'm recording this on a Wednesday. You'll listen on a Friday. So things hopefully will have news by then. But as of now, Wednesday night, she's out for the game that the Fever has today and is still they're just taking it day by day, obviously, because they don't want to burn her out, of course, before the All-Star game. But yeah, so of course, if you forgot, the WNBA All-Star game, like I said, it's Saturday. It's going to be at 7:30 Central Time. So definitely plan your weekend around that. I know that's what I will be doing on Saturday night, most likely. But yeah, the one other interesting thing I wanted to talk about before we take a quick little break is are the WNBA Mid-Season top 25 rankings that ESPN released earlier this week. So I kind of just wanted to highlight this. The rookies obviously weren't in the preseason rankings for the top 25, but since like obviously they've been playing, they're able to be ranked now. And so I just kind of wanted to go over the like top selections on the list because I think overall the list was pretty sound. It was compiled, like I said, by ESPN, specifically by Kendra Andrews, Kevin Pelton, Alexa Philippou, and Michael Veppel. So obviously people that know what they're talking about, but we have all-star captain Nafisa Khalil leading the rankings. She's topping the WNBA ESPN rankings for the first time ever. And her first half of the season like really has her leading obviously the MVP rankings. It's something we talked about when Caitlin Clark first got injured. Her rankings for like leading the MVP race dropped significantly, and Nafisa's rose kind of in correlation with that as well. She is also like very like just based on her performance a leading contender to repeat as Defensive Player of the Year. And following Nafisa coming in at number 2, we have Asia Wilson. So obviously absolutely phenomenal. She was ranked preseason at number 1 and Nafisa was ranked at number 2. So the two of them have swapped at this like halfway point through the season. But Asia Wilson's just like absolutely a star. I'm a huge fan of her like as a player and as a person. But she's a 3-time MVP. It really makes it's kind of like a no-brainer to have her in the top 3 of like overall player rankings. She's just an absolute star. She's averaging 21.5 points per game, 9.1 rebounds, and 2.4 blocks right now. So just an absolute force for the Aces on the court. Absolutely love her. Still obsessed with the commercial that she had however many weeks ago that was. Anytime I see her now, that's what I think about. I like hear the song in my head and I see like the jump rope scene from the commercial. Anyway, number 3, we've got Alyssa Thomas from the Mercury. 4th is Brianna Stewart. 5th is Sabrina Ionescu. Again, all of these kind of make sense. And we will see the vast majority of these players playing in the All-Star game. I think, yeah. Alyssa is ranked number 3 among players, and she's on Nafisa's roster as a reserve selection. So, again, like the majority of these people will be playing in the All-Star game or at least like making an appearance. Following Sabrina at number 5, you have Alicia Gray at number 6, Satu Sabali at number 7, Aaliyah Boston is 8th. Honestly, I could see Aaliyah Boston being someone that by the end of the season raises even higher in the rankings. She was ranked preseason at 21. Now she's at 8. But she has stepped up so much when the Fever were missing Caitlin Clark for 9 games. And I mean, she's a phenomenal player, like aside from that situation, but especially with Caitlin gone, she has really been able to like deliver and be a really big producer for that team, and she recorded a career high 31 points last month against Seattle. Right below Aaliyah, you have Caitlin Clark at number 9. Obviously, 9 for Caitlin is going to make the Caitlin Clark fans a little like rowdy, but you honestly like I think that what the ESPN Redditors said for her ranking was really valid. Like you can't assess her fully with her injury because she has missed 9 games, or wait, 10, I think. She's appeared in 12 and sat out 2 stretches of 5. Interesting. In Aaliyah's ranking description, it says they were without Clark for 9 games, but then in Clark's it says she was gone for 10. So that's annoying. Anyway, yeah, like I think 9 is fair for her. I don't think it should necessarily lower, but I don't think you can rate her higher when she hasn't played as much as a lot of these other athletes. And also she has had like a little bit of like a rough time. Like she's in a shooting slump right now. She's 13 for 41 from the field and 5 for 19 from beyond the arc since returning from the injury. So not ideal, but like every player is going to have a slump. I know a lot of people, especially with like some of these WNBA stars, like the second they have one bad game, they're like, oh my God, like it's not like that. Like she's clearly like dealing with something with this groin injury too. So I'm sure that's like could be playing a factor there. Yeah, following Caitlin at number 9, you have the Storm's Nika Ogumike, who literally can never say her name. We already went over that, but she honestly has been like a quiet contender all season. She's just continued to like move her way up the WNBA all-time leaderboards. She's 7th in points and 8th in rebounds, and her appearance in the All-Star game this season will be her 10th, which is tied for 3rd most in league history. And she's 35, but she doesn't really show any signs of slowing down. So honestly, I think it's been really exciting to watch her this season. And she just like continues to be really, really efficient and continues to be a really big factor for Seattle. I just like enjoy watching her play. She also her 52% shooting accuracy is the best of any player who's attempted at least 100 shots and at least 53 pointers too, which is I think really a cool stat line. But following her, you have teammate Skylar Diggins at 11, Kelsey Plum from the Sparks at 12, Paige Beckers is coming in at 13. So like I said, this is the first time that rookies can be ranked. Obviously, she was unranked in the preseason rankings, but it's been a little bit of a tough season for Dallas, obviously, but she's one of 3 players to average at least 18 points and 5 assists per game, ranking top 10 in the league in scoring. So she's really like doing well despite the situation that she's in. And in her 17 games, she's had 8 with 15 plus points and 5 plus assists, which is tied for 3rd most all time by any WNBA rookie, which is pretty cool. But I mean, we all kind of expected Paige to come in and like break WNBA records. I don't think anyone's surprised in that sense. But yeah, that's 13. For like the last 10, I'm just gonna kind of read off the names. The top like 15 or so are really the ones of interest to me, but just to highlight the other players, at number 14, you have Jackie Young from the Aces, 15, Kelsey Mitchell from the Fever, 16, the Dream's Ryan Howard, Minnesota Lynx's Kaylin McBride comes in at 17, at 18, you have Angel Reese from the Sky. Angel, I actually do want to point out as well, because we all know how I feel about Angel. She's my girl. Her preseason ranking was 25, and now she's coming in at 18. I do like, obviously, her rise in ranking was deserved. I could see the argument to put her even higher than this, given the fact that her rebounding game this season has just been so incredible. I plan to talk about her in a little bit more depth a bit later in this episode as well. Same with Caitlin, but yeah, I mean, obviously I have an Angel bias, but I do think you could make a case for her being higher than 18th. I'm not necessarily sure who you would move out specifically, but I am really interested to see how she could continue to rise through these rankings if she continues to play the way she's playing right now. And then following Angel, 19, you have Dearica Hamby from the Sparks, Gabby Williams from the Storm is 20, Brianna Jones from the Dream is 21, Brittany Sykes from the Washington Mystics is 22, Sonia Citron, also from the Mystics, is 23. Coming in at 24, you have Kayla Thornton from the Valkyries, and at 25, Courtney Williams from the Lynx. So top 25, pretty solid. Obviously, heading into the All-Star break, it'll be really interesting to see how those that are on the rosters for the All-Star game perform in the All-Star game, because, like I said, it's a lot of them. But yeah, I always find like rankings and comparing rankings in terms of preseason, mid-season, postseason, like shit like that really interesting. Maybe that's because like I think stats tell a lot of a story, but there's a lot to be said for kind of like showing the trends over time, in the sense of like, I think rankings can show like, obviously it's like an opinion from like analysts and like journalists and whatever, but I think like they do kind of shed a little bit of light on like, I don't even honestly know where I was going with this. What I was trying to say is that like stats are super, super important. And I think you can learn a lot about a player from looking at their stat line and like the numerical breakdown of who they are as a player. But what I like about rankings are the fact that like they can kind of account for more of like the qualitative aspects of a player's game. There we go. That's what I meant. Sometimes you really just have to like stop what you're saying and like shut up and lock back in. And on that note, we are going to take a quick break for a brief message from our friends at Playback. Presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together, with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about, win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. And now back to the show. Welcome back. We are continuing right along with more news out of the lovely and amazing WNBA. So like I said before the break, I was going to get a little bit more into the just like stuff about Angel and Caitlin. That was a bad way to explain it because they're always pitted against each other. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark separately each are having like a little situation. So Reese and Clark actually are both out. They're both the Sky and the Fever are supposed to play Wednesday the 16th, and they're both out for their individual games. So Angel is out with a leg designation. It's not really clear when or how she sustained it, and like it's not really clear how bad it is or anything like that. And this injury is happening obviously just like a few days before the All-Star break, and she's like we talked about before the podcast break. So many breaks. She will be playing for Nafisa Kalia's team, so it's definitely not like an ideal time for her to be being injured. She is technically a reserve, so it's not necessarily going to be like the biggest issue if she's out, but like these rosters are only 11 people, so like losing anyone really isn't ideal. This is Angel's second All-Star selection and her second ever season in the WNBA, and she's currently the leading rebounder in the league, averaging 14 points, 2.6 rebounds, 3.8 assists, and 1.6 steals per game. And like, I mean, we've gone over this. I'm an Angel Reese defender until the day I die. I love her, but like, she's finally like putting up numbers that people can't really ignore. And so I really, really hope whatever is going on with her leg gets sorted out quickly. I would really, really love to see her in the All-Star game. But like, we just don't know as of now. I think she's still like questionable. That's at least what it was before I started recording this episode of the podcast. Yeah. I just Googled it. It's just like questionable for the All-Star game, right? Yeah. Oh, okay, interesting. So I just like wanted to like double check that there weren't any updates on her injury, obviously, but Athlon Sports posted an article talking about how in addition to Angel, Ariel Atkins is also out with a leg injury for the Sky. And so they're saying ahead of tip-off, both players received notable updates. Atkins, sidelined with a leg injury, is considered day-to-day. Reese is also out with a leg issue, but her absence appears to be precautionary, an encouraging sign that the team is simply giving her additional rest before she suits up in, obviously, the All-Star game this weekend. Okay, so that does make me feel a little bit better just about, like, her situation and everything. I absolutely adore her. In like one of the Sky's most recent games, I'm not sure which one, but there was a fan like wearing an Angel halo and a Reese's Peanut Butter Cups like costume thing, and Angel went and took a picture with her, and like, it's such a cute picture. I absolutely love it. None of the players deserve hate unless you're Britta Curl in the PWHL. But like, the Angel Reese hate is so undeserved, and like, I will forever, like, as long as I have this podcast, you're going to hear me talk about how much I love Angel Reese and how amazing of not only a player but role model she is for young girls and young athletes. So suck it up. But yeah, in addition to Angel, also questionable for the All-Star game, and honestly probably a bigger issue considering she's a captain, is Caitlin Clark, like we mentioned before the break. So she left Tuesday's game against the Connecticut Sun. They played at TD Garden. It's the second game that the TD Garden has hosted, and it was sold out. Brief side note, actually, like on that, about just like Boston and WNBA and everything like that. Like, everyone wants a WNBA team in Boston so bad. And as someone who just moved out of Boston after living there for 4 years, I wanted one so bad too. But I like, the issue with that is like, as much as there is absolutely a market for it, and like very much like, if you build it, they will come. Like, people will for sure come. They just don't really have a place to put them. They're running into the same issue that PWHL Boston runs into with, they're playing all the way out in like bumfuck Lowell, which is so small in terms of like the arena, and also so fucking hard and annoying and awful to get to. So I think it's smart that the W isn't just jumping on a market where they know that there's interest. They're waiting to like put these teams in facilities where they can actually play that will be good. As much as I would love to see a Boston WNBA team at the Garden, they already have the Bruins and the Celtics there. They don't have space to fit in another professional athletic schedule. Like, it's not going to work, especially given the fact that the Garden also hosts like concerts and shit like that. Like, it just won't work. But anyway, back to Caitlin Clark, who was playing at TD Garden. So the Fever won 85-77 over the Sun. I don't even remember if I said that. But she left because of an apparent groin injury that occurred in the final minute of the game. And Indiana coach Stephanie White said that she, quote, like, that Caitlin, quote, felt a little something in her groin. And so they're evaluating her to see kind of like what happens from there. So she like bounced the ball to Kelsey Mitchell for like when Mitchell went to do a layup with like 40 seconds left on the clock. And then she was like holding the inside of her right thigh and then like walked over and like looked really frustrated. So obviously this isn't ideal. She's supposed to be a captain in the All-Star game on Saturday, and this isn't like a new situation. She's missed a bunch of games this season, and this is the first time in her college or pro career that she's ever actually sat out games. Okay, here we go. Before I was confused if it was 9 or 10. It's 10 including the Commissioner's Cup final. That makes so much more sense. So she's been out like that entire time with like a groin injury situation, but she sat out in a preseason game actually because of quad tightness. And she had like a quadricep strain. Wait, preseason game. Yeah, this was earlier this season. She had the quad tightness then, and then in May and June, she missed 5 games for a quad strain separate from like that preseason thing. And then the groin injury took her out for the second 5 games. So like, it's not just this groin injury. It's like also this quad thing that like has been bothering her since the beginning of the season. As of now, it looks like it's just the groin injury. But obviously like none of that's ideal, especially like overall for any player. You don't want anyone getting injured, but like a player like Clark this early in her career, like with not only the talent she has, but also the impact she's having in the league, like it would absolutely be fucking detrimental for her to have some sort of like actual significant injury. Obviously, like, she's a fucking baller. She's a grinder. Like, I'm sure she would come back and like heal and like impress us all and shock us all. But like, this would be really, really, really not ideal if it were to continue to be an issue. So I really, really hope they can like figure out kind of what's going on with her and maybe like make some sort of like stronger long-term recovery plan so things like this don't really like keep happening. I guess, like, I don't know, like there's only so much you can do in terms of injury prevention, in the sense that like obviously she's gonna like want to go out and give it her all every time she's on the court, as she fucking should, but it's also something that like you have to think about with these players that are in like year 2, 3, 4 of their career, like thinking about the longevity, not just the results that you want right now, if that makes sense. So yeah, as of now, she's like for sure out for that Wednesday game, and they're gonna like keep evaluating her. I would say that it's more likely that, not that like you can only have one of them, but I would say it's more likely that Angel is eligible for the game, given that she's out on more of like a precautionary level in compared to Caitlin. I think the fact that the fever kept her out of the Commissioner's Cup final would suggest that they would have no issue keeping her out of this game to protect her from like further injuring herself. And so I think that like, as much as that would really suck for the game and like for Caitlin and her fans, like I do think that like Caitlin Clark fans should really prepare themselves for the possibility that they might not be seeing her in this All-Star game, which like really truly is unfortunate. I know like I've like kind of not like called her out, but like said that I like want to see more from her addressing like this like social issues in the WNBA and things like that. Like I feel like sometimes that can get like misconstrued in the sense of like everyone thinks I like hate Caitlin Clark. I really don't. I think she's awesome. I think she's a really talented player. And like the last thing I want is the last thing that I would ever do is sit here and be like, oh my God, like I hope this injury is like so bad and like so significant. Like that's just crazy. But yeah. Kind of moving still within the WNBA for like the last WNBA portion of this episode, still with Caitlin. Former WNBA star Candace Parker ranked a bunch of WNBA players, and she used like a tiered ranking system, and she ended up ranking a decent amount of players ahead of Caitlin Clark. And so or not decent amount, 3. I'm also thinking of her being ranked 9th in the other rankings, but Candace Parker put 3 WNBA players above Caitlin and kind of talked about how she can like take that next step. To be super honest, the rankings that Candace Parker used really confused me because they were just like the letters with like the S tier is the best and the D tier is the worst. But like Angel Reese is in the C tier and Caitlin is in the A tier, and like maybe is that like common like player tiered ranking? Is that like common? If that's like common knowledge of how those work, that's like actually going to be really embarrassing for me. Oh yeah, it's like one of these these confuse me so much. Like I always see the like MLB like worst tier lists like on Instagram or whatever, and those crack me the fuck up. But like I don't understand like the letter designations for each ranking. So upon my brief research, that is definitely just a me thing. But so basically Candace Parker says like it's tricky because Caitlin Clark is at an A level in time. She thinks she'll raise up to that S, but in order to put her at that S level, she'll have to have a couple more years in the league. So above Caitlin, sorry, oh my gosh, I just like lost where I was like looking at these rankings. So above Caitlin on that S tier, that highest tier, Parker put Asia Wilson. Obviously, she said if there was something higher than S, I would definitely put her up there, which couldn't agree more. And then also in the S tier are Nafisa Collier and Brianna Stewart. So I absolutely like do not think whatsoever that like Candace Parker is a bad take here. I honestly think it's a really valid take. I think a lot of people, because of like Caitlin's stardom and like the draw she's brought to the game, all like, and just like honestly like the name recognition, like her name is almost a buzzword now. Like I think people just automatically think that because it's Caitlin Clark, like she needs to be the top of every single list and every single ranking and everything like that, and that's really not the case. I think a lot of people forget that she is really just in her second WNBA season, and like she has so much career left. And like at the same time, she is undeniably battling through like the worst shooting slump of her career right now. And so like as much as Caitlin Clark defenders are like gonna be annoyed that she's not ranked number 1 by like everyone, like I think ultimately it's really valid. And like also I'm sorry if you're gonna tell me that Candace Parker doesn't know what she's talking about, like fuck out of here. Like what? Like sorry, that's crazy. But yeah, like, oh, basically, I think, like, with this whole, like, Caitlin Clark, like, ranking thing, and, like, Candace Parker's rankings, I think, were really valid. I think she has probably, like, the best take. I would say her take is definitely better than, like, certain, like, I don't know. I think she put a lot of thought into this, and, like, it's very clear, but I think a lot of, like, I think she's getting a lot of flack because, like, I am so all over the place today. I apologize. What I was going to say is that the CBS Sports article that I was referencing a lot of Candace's rankings from, like, reference the response to her rankings as, like, they're making waves. So, like, yeah, obviously people aren't, like, thrilled with this, but I think especially in terms of Caitlin, like, a lot of people have to remember, she's missed a lot of time this season, so, like, there aren't the numbers to necessarily pull from. So, like, while she may be ranked lower, that isn't necessarily because she's, like, quote unquote bad or something like that. But, like, I think ultimately, like, a lot of what we have to remember is just, like, she is at the end of the day a very young player, as talented as she is, as well known as she is, and I think, like, that Parker's rankings in this sense were incredibly valid with all of that in mind. So just kind of wanted to touch on that because I know, like, they weren't necessarily received super well, and I think sometimes, like, people take the wrong thing and run with it in the sense of, like, oh yeah, like, Caitlin Clark wasn't named to the top tier, whatever. Okay, like, let's look at why. Like, let's not just take, like, what happened and be like, oh my god, like, let's actually look at the reasoning behind that and understand it and kind of break it down, and then you'll, like, hopefully come to a conclusion that, hey, that kind of actually makes sense. But yeah, that is it for our WNBA news on this episode. I know it has been very WNBA heavy, which is super fun since in the past I know things have been pretty PWHL heavy, which is not everyone's favorite thing to listen to. I know the W is more popular than the PWHL, which I get it. I just am a PWHL girl at heart. And so on that note, we are going to be doing a little off-season signing update. So not all of the teams have kind of, like, signed people that they've drafted in the 2025 PWHL draft and the expansion draft. Only 2 expansion draft, like, players have actually signed their deals. So defender Anna Wilgren signed with Seattle on a 1-year deal, and forward Brooke McQuigg signed with Vancouver, also on a 1-year deal. In terms of players taken in the 2025 draft, there have been 6, I can't count, 6 that have signed so far. So defender Kendall Cooper signed a 2-year contract with Minnesota. Forward Sarah Wozniak signed for 1 year with Ottawa. Goaltender Sani Aloha signed for 1 year with Ottawa. Forwards Anna Shokina and Fenuza Kedorova both signed with Ottawa for a year. And forward Jenna Buglioni signed with Seattle for 2 years. So Anna Wilgren and Brooke McQuigg, those 2 have already been in the league. They were taken by Seattle and Vancouver in the expansion draft. But all 6 of those new players that I just read out, those are all girls that are new to the league, or will be new to the league come fall. In terms of other, like, movement, there hasn't been like anyone signing with, like, a new team, but there have been a lot of contracts that were re-signed. So in terms of players re-signing with their teams, you have forward Katie Knoll re-signed with Minnesota on a year contract. Defender Hadley Hartmetz re-signed with Boston for 1 year. Forward Caitlin Willoughby re-signed with Montreal for 1 year. Defender Allison Simpson signed with New York for 2 years. Forward Anna Meixner signed with Ottawa for 1 year, as did defender Sam Isbal and goaltender Logan Angers, and also Jessica Adolfson. Sorry, that was a bad way to read that. Anna Meixner, Sam Isbal, Logan Angers, and Jessica Adolfson all re-signed with Ottawa for a year. And then you have last year's first round draft pick Sarah Fillier, forward, re-signing with New York for 2 years. Fellow forward Shea Maloney re-signed with Boston for 2 years, and then Stephanie Markowski re-signed with Ottawa for 1 year. So quite a bit of movement happening in the PWHL. Obviously, like, things are starting to die down post expansion in the sense that like there aren't too many there isn't too much movement happening between teams anymore. Now it's just kind of confirming rosters and everything like that. But I did still kind of just want to give a brief little update as to how things are going over there in the PWHL world. We still obviously don't have team names for Seattle and Vancouver. I think I talked about this a couple episodes ago. Part of me wouldn't be shocked if they had them play the inaugural season just under the names PWHL Seattle and PWHL Vancouver, because that's how the inaugural 6 teams played in the first season, just as like PWHL Boston, PWHL whatever. So I could see them doing that, but I really just want them to pick a name. I think now that we're at this point in the league, like where we're going to continue like developing things like that, I think that they need to start with a name. Like we just talked about the Portland Fire at the beginning of the episode. They're not going to play that. They're not going to start that team as like WNBA Portland. Like they waited to give them a name, and I think the PWHL needs to do the same thing in that sense. But that is all the women's hockey news for today. Really quick before we wrap up, I'm just going to give a little update from the Athletes Unlimited Softball League. So as a reminder, there are only 4 teams in this league, but the Talons have clinched a playoff berth. So they're basically doing like playoffs in like kind of an interesting format. Basically, the Talons are first in like the standings overall right now, and with a loss from the Volts yesterday, they clinched that first place spot. So they're the first team to qualify for the like playoffs or whatever. And I'm trying to figure out kind of how the playoffs are supposed to work, in the sense that like it's really only 4 teams. And so yes, the Talons like clinched, but like what does that actually mean? Because if there are only 4 teams, are you only having like 2 in the playoff? Like it doesn't make sense. And this is like obviously something that like I should know, but I like don't, like it's weirdly hard to like figure it out, if that makes sense. But when I was prepping the episode, I like tried to figure it out, and like when I was like researching and everything, and like I still couldn't like fully figure it out. And I'm like looking right now and I'm still confused. Like the postseason schedule is on their website, and it's just 3 games with 2 opponents. So like that makes me ultimately think that they would just have 2 teams. And like if you're getting teams to clinch playoff berths, like they're obviously all not making the playoffs. So I would assume that it's just going to be a series between the 2 top teams. But I'm honestly not 100% sure. But just like in terms of standings right now, obviously the Talons are first. They've clinched their playoff berth. They're standing right now at 14 wins and 4 losses, followed by the Bandits with 11 and 7. And then the Volts are 6 and 12, and the Blaze are 5 and 13. So if I had to like wager a wild guess, I would say it's absolutely going to be a Bandits Talons championship series situation. If, like I said, they are just 2 teams, I'm pretty sure that has to be the situation based on like everything I've tried to figure out about it. But if that's not, that's like, first of all, like embarrassing for me, but I'll come back to next week's episode with like a definitive answer on that, because that actually doesn't fully make a ton of sense to me. But like I said, like if they're having teams like, so to speak, like clinch that, like punch their ticket, then you would think that it's just 2. And like based on the schedule having like just 3 games with like 1 opponent each, like it's not a double header situation. I'm assuming it's just a series between 2 teams since the league is so small. But yeah, that is kind of everything I have for you today. So thank you so much for listening to episode 8 of Sarah Says So. As a reminder, don't forget to follow and subscribe to the show at Sarah Says So ETB on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and all podcast platforms. And you can always watch the video version of the show at youtube.com/ETB Network. Thanks so much for listening, and make sure to tune in next week.